point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and Tom Fennell over here.
Right over here.
Much more
in
together.
The flesh.
In the flesh, and much more together than I am, knocking over my monitor and things like that. So, Energy Week is an hour-long show. This, by the way, is our 291st edition.
It is that.
Of Energy Week. It's an hour-long show that we do every week, and we do a few specials too, so we haven't done it for 291 weeks, but we've done it for close to that number. And it is just Tom and me talking about news that came up in the previous week about energy and climate change. I get the news stories at my blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. You can go there and look at the stories, and I have a synopsis to each one, which I read here. Tom reads the title, and there's a link for each one, so you can go read the original story and find out that we are, in fact, telling the truth. That's what the story said.
Well, some of these stories are pretty good, pretty informative, and
yep.
My goodness, we could take the whole show up on some of them.
Yes,
so
we could.
If we find one that's particularly interesting, we'll try to call it to your attention. 'Cause
yep.
As I was about to say, many of these are really interesting and informative.
Some of them are really kind of amazing. There's one, there's maybe, we'll see if we come to it. Maybe I'm thinking of another thing. Anyway, every day I do this, I put up 10 to 15 stories. And if you go to geoharvey.com, you can click on the calendar to go to a particular date and see the stories for that day. And we will try to keep you apprised of the dates for the stories, so you can do that. Today is November the 15th. We're recording this on a Thursday morning. So we will start with the previous Thursday, which is November 8th. We have a picture here.
Yeah, we got a picture coming up.
Tom and I have talked about this picture
here.
before we started the show up. That's a picture which I think both of us are pretty much convinced that that's something that was put together by an artist.
Yeah, it's a composite. It's not a real scene.
Yeah, it's not a real scene. Those four pumps are too identical. And the other thing is the pivot point for the pump jack appears to be that round thing on the top of the pump stand. And it's not concentric with the arc of the head of the pump jack. So I don't think these pumps would actually work in reality. Nevertheless,
well, you'd never find four of them in a row that are exactly the same.
No,
phase.
You wouldn't. It's just not. Anyhow, this particular story comes from a publication called Raw Story.
Voters in 3 U.S. states reject initiatives to curb fossil fuel use.
Voters in the states of Colorado, Arizona, and Washington rejected ballot initiatives that sought to curb fossil fuels by restricting drilling, putting a fee on carbon emissions, and mandating wider use of renewable energy. The results were a win for the fossil fuels industry.
We're going to revisit this 2 more times in today's story, so we won't spend too much time yet. The third article is pretty in-depth, so we'll probably spend a little more time.
Good idea.
Quick one here is, though, the groups defending the oil industry spent a combined $66 million to defeat the measures. You can see they're upset about this.
They don't want this. And you know, we aren't going to talk about it today, but we are going to talk about it next week. President Trump has nominated a person whose name I've forgotten to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Yeah. This particular fellow is an attorney who has had a number of jobs, including, as I recall, working he's worked in favor of the coal industry. And the renewable energy people are not happy about this, but neither is the petroleum industry.
That's interesting.
Because they don't want coal resurrected. They want, you know.
They want oil, yeah.
Absolutely. But the interesting thing about this particular guy, which I laughed out loud when I read this, he said, renewable energy is only about 7% of our electricity.
7?
7, and anything more than that will screw up the grid.
Oh, okay.
He's a little behind the times and very wrong.
If you watch the show here, you'd know that.
You'd know that, yeah. And because the Department of Energy says that renewables are about 20%, and they aren't screwing up the grid.
Well, eventually they're going to drastically change the grid.
They will drastically change the grid.
We're not going to need a grid like we have now. It's going to be distributed. It's going to be, I see a whole bunch of microgrids tied together.
I think that's right. But I do think that we'll still have long distance transmission, but it'll be
it's
for
going to make sense
different
for
purpose.
it to dispatch vast quantities
Right.
from time to time.
Yep. Okay. You got more on that, or should we go?
No, let's move on.
All right. We've got an item here from Clean Technica.
Floating, this is an interesting article.
It's an interesting
Floating,
article.
we've talked about this concept
Yeah,
before.
we have.
Floating solar is the best solution for Colorado towns' high electric bills. And in the article, we're not going to show it here as a picture of how they do it, how they make these things float, and
Yeah,
it's interesting.
It is. When a town has high electric bills and no available land for a solar farm, a floating solar plant on the pond of a wastewater plant makes great sense. Walden, Colorado, which has a population of 750 and is at an elevation of 8,000 plus feet, the land of the town is only a third of a square mile.
Not very much.
Not all that big.
And part of that is a reservoir.
Yeah, and part of that is this reservoir. Well, the reservoir isn't doing anything but holding water. So
Yeah.
why not just put a solar farm
Bingo.
there and make it float?
There's unexpected benefits to doing that.
Oh, yeah.
You cut down evaporation from the reservoir.
True enough.
Okay. And it's keeping the solar system that's installed there cooler, so
Yes.
it's running more efficiently.
Yes. One of the things that showed up recently in the news, and I forget whether it's on today's in today's broadcast or not, is that a study of solar farms in the UK indicated that 25% of the power from some of these farms is lost because of hot spots in the panels.
I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah, they actually had infrared pictures.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess I didn't include it, but because some of the things that I don't include because they're confusing.
Okay.
And this particular one was written in a way that I thought was very confusing. But a lot of power was being lost because these panels were, their efficiency was being undermined badly by hot spots.
So we're going to have to redesign the connection.
They might
within the
have to.
panels, yeah.
One of the things about the study was that they found that the panels, and this is all, similar panels, the panels that were within a mile or two of the seashore didn't have this problem.
That's interesting.
Well, it's because of sea breezes.
Yeah, okay.
You see, and they were cooled
yeah,
off.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Let's move along. We got a nice picture coming
we have
up
a picture here of a Arizona solar array and an article from Public News Service.
Now, it's interesting in Arizona and all of a lot of the Southwest anyhow,
Yeah,
that because they have a lot of deserts, they got a lot of space for solar.
They do,
Solar takes
yeah.
a lot of space,
it takes. It's saying that it takes a lot of space. I remember
Everything's relative.
Everything's relative. Elon Musk got up when he announced the batteries that he was doing and said, "This is a map of the United States, and here is this dot." Which was a largish dot, but it was still just a dot in Kansas. And he said that would be enough to power the country. So what do we have for a title here?
Backers of failed Proposition 127 to continue push for Arizona renewables. And of course, this is about the recent election.
About the election. Backers of a defeated ballot measure aimed at increasing greatly renewable energy in Arizona will continue to push for more wind and solar power. Proposition 127 failed by a vote of more than 2-1 after multi-million-dollar campaigns on both sides.
Well, this is part 2 of basically a 3-part series that we're
Right.
going to talk about today.
Right.
So let's move on to talk about it a little bit later. But I think I got a takeaway here.
Oh, what's that?
Arizona utilities generate about 10% currently of the state's energy with renewable sources. 40% of the electricity is generated by natural gas, 27% by coal, and 23% by nuclear. That's the current.
No hydro in
be
Arizona? That's a big... Okay. We are up to Friday, November 9th, and
Yeah,
we
we
have an
got one
item
coming
here
up
from
here.
CNN.
Federal judge halts Keystone XL pipeline construction.
This
Now,
sounds
this is
like
a biggie.
Yeah, this is a
This
biggie,
is a
but it's
biggie.
something that almost sounds like it came from the past. And we have another one on this as well, don't we? Yes, we do.
I think we do, yeah.
We have another one.
This is a hot button item right now.
A federal district judge found that the U.S. government's use of a 2014 environmental review to justify issuing a presidential permit for construction of the cross-border pipeline violated the National Environment Policy Act, the Endangered Species Act, and the Administrative Procedure Act.
Well, this is the one where Obama put in some regulations, and one of
Right.
the first things Trump did was throw the regulations out the window.
Yep.
And the judge is now saying, you couldn't do that.
You can't
know,
do it.
You know, you didn't even
Well-
look at what you were doing. You just threw the
Yeah.
baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've read is that Donald Trump wants to change the Constitution by executive order.
Well, good luck. I don't think he's going to get away with that one.
I don't think he's going to get away with it, not even with the Supreme Court that he's got.
Interesting thing. This came from CNN.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've noticed is CNN almost always starts off with a short video.
Yes.
And usually that short video is about a minute and a half. It's worth watching.
Yes.
In this particular one, it's about pipeline leaks, or specifically Keystone pipeline leaks. A minute and a half. The pipeline is leaking 210,000 gallons of oil a year.
That's a lot of oil.
That's
And
a lot.
and 1 gallon
That's just
of oil.
a leak.
1 gallon of oil will severely pollute 5,000 gallons of water. So we're talking about millions of gallons of water here being 10 million being polluted badly enough that you could just say, well, it's kind of beyond repair.
Well, the court didn't really throw everything out. What they basically said, here's what you got to do, ...
Yes.
And Trump is turning around and saying, I'm not going to do it. But
Well-
if he's going to get away, if he's going to continue with this, he's going to have to do it. He's going to have to
Or
comply.
they're going to appeal to the Supreme Court, which is where I think this is going to go.
It probably will.
Okay. Our next item comes from
another
Clean
picture
Technica.
here coming up.
Yep, Clean Technica.
And we're back in Arizona. No, this is Nevada.
This is Nevada.
Not much different, is it?
Arizona had one initiative, Nevada had another.
Voters raised Nevada Renewables goal to 50%. Nevada Energy has $2 billion in plans.
Nevada voters approved a measure to increase the renewable energy portfolio standard for the state. This one passed. From 15% by 2025 to 50%, that is from 15 to 50. 15% in 2025 to 50% by 2030, a goal for which NV Energy is preparing with $2 billion worth of requests for proposals this year.
Well, what's interesting here was NV Energy, which is the utility, supported the measure.
Yes, that's right.
And in Arizona, they spent $60 million to fight it, or
Yes,
$16 million.
and the fight against this was done by a casino. Well coordinated, but it was done at the behest of a casino operator.
Was it really?
Who wanted to get out of.
Oh, we've talked about that.
Yes.
Yeah, we have.
he wanted to
They
get
paid
out of a
big money to
contract.
get out of it.
Right. He wanted to get out of a contract that he was afraid would cost him $60 million to get out of. And he put $25 million into a failed campaign to do that.
That doesn't seem like it makes sense.
No, actually, think about this. The guy is a casino operator,
Yeah.
and he was doing this as though it was a poker bet.
Okay.
You lose sometimes.
Yeah.
You know.
All right.
Anyway, we should note that Nevada Energy is owned by Berkshire Hathaway, and Berkshire Hathaway is running under the thumb of Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett's various utilities and things like that that he's been working on, that he owns, or I should say Berkshire Hathaway owns, because he doesn't own Berkshire Hathaway, he just owns a bunch of it. There's been a lot of renewable energy coming up, and they're going more and more for renewable energy.
Seems like he knows what's going on.
He seems like he knows what's going on, yeah. Okay, should we move on?
along here from one from Clean Technica.
Yeah, another one from Clean Technica.
Indiana Utility says replacing coal with renewables will save customers $4 billion.
Coal is king in Indiana when it comes to power generation, but not for much longer. Northern Indiana Public Service Company has found a mix of solar, wind, energy storage, and demand management will save its customers about $4 billion over the next 30 years.
Well, Indiana produces coal.
Yes.
They're 7th in the U.S. in coal production and 3rd in the U.S. in coal consumption. So they're going against this.
Yes.
Okay, but, and this came from the article, it's a good quote, there is no engine on earth that can restrain the imperative of lower prices for long.
Yeah, well, money,
Bingo.
as they say, money talks.
Money talks.
Yep. We are up to Saturday, November 10th.
And we got another picture.
We have a picture here. Whoops.
Whoa, what happened?
Wrong picture.
Where we go?
There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go. No KXL. Victory.
Okay, this is another one on the Keystone XL pipeline. This one is from
Clean Technica.
Clean Technica. And what do you have for a title on this?
Trump's Keystone XL tar sands oil pipeline promise kept and undone.
Unkept.
This is the more of the 3 in a row that are going to talk about this.
This
one.
is
the one
Tina
we'll talk
Casey,
about.
who is a writer for Clean Technica, has fun with the things that she writes sometimes. A federal judge in the District of Montana who overturned a permit for Keystone XL pipeline issued an order that all but guarantees that the pipeline will die another death by 1,000 cuts. He ordered a complete do-over on economic and environmental impacts.
Well, this is the 5 things or so they told him he's got to do that he's saying, I'm not going to do.
Well, the only way he can get around this is by getting around the judge, and you know it might be that the
He's going to try.
He'll try, but he's not going to redo the environmental impacts.
Well, for
Redoing the environmental impacts is going to take years.
Oh yeah.
It's not going to be something that happens in a week or two.
Oh no. This is he. In order to do it, he's got to do it right.
Yes, that's right.
So anyhow, in case you haven't been paying attention, and if you watch the show, you have, but the pipeline was originally intended to bring oil from the tar sands in Canada down to the U.S.
Yes.
That's how they sold it to us.
Yes.
Okay. However, in reality, the pipeline was intended to convey Canadian tar sands oil straight down to refineries in the U.S. for export. So they deceived us right from the beginning.
Now,
it wasn't even
we should point out, it wasn't Canada deceiving us. It was the pipeline people
Absolutely.
deceiving us.
Keystone XL offered little in the way of domestic benefits and much in the way of climate change issues. And as far as this one is concerned, local environmental impacts.
Yes, and
the Native Americans
big potential impacts.
were just basically suffering pretty badly by this.
Yes.
Well, little dumb things like the pipeline going through their drinking water supply.
Well, yeah, except the pipeline didn't have any choice but to go through their drinking water supply. There's another thing that I should point out here, and that is Keystone XL is not the only way to get that oil to the Gulf Coast. It's only basically there is a pipeline that's shaped like an uppercase L upside down.
Yeah.
And this thing makes it does a dog leg across a part of that, shortens the distance, avoids certain valves and stations and so forth. So it would simply make the oil cheaper to transport. But you know, a week or two ago, we had an article about Canadian tar sands oil, and I had no idea until I read this thing, saying that Canadian tar sands oil only cost $19 a barrel. That's not the cost of extraction. That's what they get when they sell it.
Well, it's pretty crummy oil.
It's terrible oil. It's absolutely awful.
It's almost not even oil.
Yeah, it's basically mud.
Yeah.
And they're putting this stuff through the pipeline, and it's full of sand. At least that's what I've read.
I've read that too, so it's wearing the hell out of the pipeline pretty quickly.
It wears the pipeline down, so it increases the chances of leaks. And of course, when you've got the oil running through this pipeline, crossing the drinking water supplies for people who live in the upper Midwest, in the western part of the upper Midwest, that's fairly dry territory. There's not a lot of water up there. Yeah. And these people, if they lose their water supply, are going to be in serious trouble. And what is the pipeline doing to guarantee their water supply?
Not doing much.
Not much. So they've got a beef here, and the federal government under Donald Trump is not very sympathetic.
Not at all.
Yeah.
They're sympathetic to
They're sympathetic to people who have a lot of money and don't need more.
Bingo.
Okay.
Well, let's move along to something completely different.
Yes.
5 new state governors aim for 100% renewables. This is timely to the election.
Right. This is more on the election. This particular item comes from PV Magazine International. 5 governors-elect in Colorado, Illinois, Nevada, Connecticut, and Maine, states with a combined population of 26 million people, put forth campaign goals of 100% renewable electricity. Currently, only Connecticut and Hawaii have a deadline to make 100% zero carbon electricity. The governor of Colorado wants Colorado to be the first state to achieve that. The goals for Connecticut and California are both 2045. He wants to do it by 2040. But the one that I'm really kind of happy about, because it's almost local, it's certainly New England, is Maine.
Maine, yep.
Because we've had a government of Maine that has been very resistant to the idea of renewable energy, and
But that's changed.
It's changed.
It's in the middle of some change, right?
Yeah, it is.
Well, the article here is kind of interesting because it's a little bit about politics.
Yeah.
And it varies. What's happening in each of these states varies for different reasons from state to state.
Right.
And the article goes into that pretty deeply. So if
Right.
you're interested in that, follow up on it.
Well, there's a lot going on in Maine. Maine has a lot of wind farms. It's got a lot of wind potential.
A lot of wind potential.
They've got
We'll
a lot
talk
of wind
about that a little
potential,
bit later.
and a lot of that potential is in areas where nobody lives.
Yep. Which is most of Maine.
Yeah. And I remember reading an article about somebody who got lost in Maine.
Uh-huh.
And he was on a road that went, I don't know, something like 200 miles without passing a single building. You know, he was driving.
Parts of Maine are pretty sparsely
They're
populated.
pretty sparse, yeah. Okay.
Well, we got a picture coming up here.
We do. We have a picture of a wind farm. And
let's
that is
get that
a
up
generic wind farm picture. And it's from a publication called Into the Wind.
Into the Wind.
Yeah, which is some wind organization publishes this.
Yeah, well, University of Texas study highlights wind's low cost.
Wind, solar, and natural gas have the lowest levelized cost of electricity in the majority of counties across the United States. This is the majority of counties across the entire country. According to a new report from the University of Texas at Austin's Energy Institute, part of a series of white papers on the full cost of electricity.
Well, I was reading this article in depth. They got a big map on it,
Yes.
and the map is confusing because it looks like, well, by their criteria, this is the potential for wind.
Yes.
Because it's big in Vermont, it's big in Maine,
Yep.
and it ain't going to happen in Vermont under the present politics.
No.
Okay, there's
Probably not.
Quite a bit of
I
opposition.
don't know what's happened in the Senate in Vermont.
Well,
Do you?
anyhow, what this article was doing was looking at the potential
Right.
for wind, and it's the levelized cost, which is the lowest cost of electricity as it goes to market, including all of the subsidies.
Right.
Everything.
Well, almost all the subsidies. It does not include Price Anderson for nuclear, for example, which could
That's
be
not a subsidy.
it could be regarded, if somebody's paying your insurance bill,
Yeah,
that's a
it's
subsidy. There's certain other things but nevertheless, what they're trying to do is to create a picture of what's going on with the cost of energy that makes it possible to compare different sources.
Well, the map was interesting, and they found wind to be a cost-competitive electricity source across all parts of the country.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wind potential in this country. That doesn't bring up the obstacles.
Yes.
It's just the potential.
Just the potential.
It's an interesting thing to look at.
Right. Well, we are up to Sunday, November 11th.
This is interesting, too. We got a nice
And-
picture coming up.
Do we? We're at a Huffington Post article. Winds by...
Yeah.
There's a picture?
Oh,
from
it's the pictures in the next one. Yep. Winds by Democratic attorneys general threaten to multiply climate change suits against big oil.
it? Now, this
is a big article.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
a big
long
article, and it actually goes back again to the recent elections.
Yep.
Because here, what we've got is more attorneys general have been elected who are interested in pursuing things like suits against big oil. Democrats scored a string of state attorney general victories on election night, ousting some loyal oil and gas allies and threatening to add to mounting lawsuits against the industry over climate change. The party has flipped 4 states.
Well, from the article here, this is kind of a takeaway. The oil and gas industry's expensive victories in the midterm elections could come at a price.
Yes.
Okay, so they give a state-by-state narrative here, and it's
Yep.
interesting.
And one of the things that struck me when I looked at this article was that the fossil fuels industry has put a lot of money into a lot of campaigns. And
Oh, yeah.
in this particular
Especially,
election,
particularly, yes.
yep, they put a lot of money into the Senate, U.S. Senate races.
Yep.
And I'm convinced
Big time money.
Big time money, and I'm convinced that the reason they do that, I don't know how much it was. Do you know? It might have been over $400 million.
It was vast.
It was huge. The reason they did that, I'm sure, is because they want to control the Supreme Court.
Absolutely. I was thinking exactly the same thing.
But they neglected state politics in many areas, and one of the things that they neglected was this, which is the attorneys general. And, they're banking on things that they shouldn't be banking on.
Okay.
The Supreme Court is not going to overturn every problem they've got.
They would like it to.
That's
They're counting on their fingers what's going to
that's
happen.
what they're paying for, but
Yeah.
nevertheless, that's okay.
Let's move along. We got a nice picture coming up here.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, in this article, there's 4 really nice pictures.
There's 4 good pictures. I
Yeah.
could have picked a couple of them for this, and I took this one because it was the one that I thought would be clearest on television.
This is so neat. Look at that. They call it the White Forest.
Yeah. Well, you can see the title on the thing is Forêt Blanche.
White Forest.
Yeah, White Forest.
And that's Paris.
Yep.
And
I
this
think-
one is actually going to be built. I mean, I
Yeah.
think they've started.
If you
construction
look
on it.
very carefully at the horizon on the left side, I think you can even see the Eiffel Tower. It's a tiny little
You can.
thing.
Yep, there it is.
There it
There
is.
it is over there. Very
Yeah.
a little bit foggy day there.
Yeah. I was in Paris in 1962 on Bastille Day. It was
Never been to Paris.
very
Never
exciting.
been. The article's interesting because there's 4 such pictures of very imaginative architecture.
Oh yeah, and that's what
they're all pretty neat.
that's what it's all about.
Well, there's one of them in Shanghai. They call it Green Hill.
Yes.
Okay. Another one is the vertical forest here in Paris.
Yep.
Very interesting one, the floating university in Bangladesh.
Yes.
I didn't think they did anything in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
And Barcelona, they're going to re-green downtown.
What's the title?
Sustainable architecture, the beauty behind energy-efficient buildings.
And this is, it's, as we said, this is a Clean Technica article. Creating buildings with the lowest possible carbon emissions while still being aesthetically pleasing is a challenge that is being addressed. Here are some of our favorite sustainable architecture projects found in Shanghai, Paris, Dhaka, and Barcelona. And
Dhaka's the one
in Bangladesh.
Bangladesh.
And, here you've got a picture of an apartment building where people are going to be able to step out on their balconies and have their own trees there. I know what I'd grow.
Peaches.
I'd grow figs.
Figs.
I love fig trees. They're really wonderful. Although I have to tell you, we've got calamondins, and I would strongly, they're citrus, and I would strongly recommend that anybody who wants.
Is that where you eat the whole thing?
You can eat the whole thing, just like eating a kumquat.
Yeah.
And it's a cross between an orange and a kumquat, but it's an old cross. Nobody knows, I think, exactly where it came from, but it's one of the commonest fruits in the Philippines, and they're so easy to grow. They're very tart. Some people who would like to eat kumquats would probably like calamondins, but they make marvelous jam and marmalade. Anyway, I'd be growing those things on my balcony if I had a place like that, but I won't. So I just grow them here in Brattleboro.
Let's move along here.
Okay, let's do that.
The significance of this is a lot bigger than the article suggests. Hurricane Broken Air Power Base has an alternative to build for resilience, and there's a picture there of what the hurricane did to this Air Force base.
Yeah, it's a complete wreck. It's a wreck.
Yeah.
Rebuilding the hurricane-wrecked Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida will come with a massive price tag, but experts say it offers a chance to make the base more resilient to the effects of extreme weather. Hurricane Michael hit Tyndall as a Category 4 storm. A Category 4 storm will remodel your buildings fairly effectively.
Well, when they built this base, it's a place to store airplanes.
Yeah.
They got a lot of hangars.
Yeah.
And they built them using the existing technology, which was basically for the Midwest.
Yes.
Tin. They made them out of steel.
Yeah.
And a hurricane just
ripped them apart.
Ripped them apart.
Yeah, the picture that's with this, I really should have put it on the agenda here, but it basically is just rubble and wreckage. That's all it is.
Well, the wind just took these tin buildings apart.
Yeah,
I mean, why didn't they build them out of concrete? Because they build them out of concrete up in Peoria. I mean, of tin in Peoria.
That's right.
Tin.
You have one design. It's good for every
everything.
place.
And
It's good for Guantanamo,
Yeah.
and it's good for Greenland. It's I'm sorry, they're not that silly, but
An interesting
sometimes
takeaway
things get
from this
that way.
article, a quote, "It is no longer reasonable to expect 500-year storms to only come once every 500 years."
Yeah.
Bingo, that says a lot.
Yeah, it does. We're up to Monday, November 12th,
we got another
and we have a
picture
picture
coming
here
up
of the
here.
campfire.
This is not a nice picture.
Not a pleasant picture.
Very current. This is going on as we speak.
It is indeed. And
That's the campfire.
yeah, it's not a campfire.
No, it's the campfire.
It is called the campfire. And this is from Quartz.
Climate change helped make California a tinderbox for its record-setting wildfires.
Camp Fire, which is devastating the Sierra Nevada foothills, has become the most destructive wildfire in California's history. By the evening of November 10th, it had scorched 105,000 acres and killed 23 people, with more than 100 people still accounted for.
Well, it's bigger than that a week later.
Oh, it's gigantic.
Twice the size, probably.
Yeah, it's absolutely
And
stunning.
105,000 acres is 160 square miles.
Yes.
13 miles by 13 miles. You know, this
Yes.
is big.
Yes.
And it's killed a lot of people, but it's destroyed over 9,000 structures.
Well, there's a couple of things here that I want to mention, one of which is Donald Trump has been really kind of unsympathetic to the people of California. He said the federal government is giving you billions of dollars each year, and the only reason why these fires have been so destructive is because of bad forest management.
But it's not happening in the forest.
It's not only is it not happening in the forest,
Yeah.
but the forests in California, 57% of the forests in California are managed by the federal government because they're on federal land.
Okay.
The complaint that he has about mismanagement points the finger at one person, and that one person is Donald Trump. Now,
You're accusing him of thinking.
yeah, and the state of California is only responsible for 3%. So, of the government managed land, 95% of it is managed by the federal government.
Well, it's not so much land management as it is climate change acting as a threat multiplier.
Well, this is what science says, but
The summers are getting hotter.
yeah,
Autumns are getting drier.
yep.
And it doesn't seem to be increasing the frequency of wildfires so much as their character.
Well,
It's making them more intense.
one of the fires, and I've forgotten which one it was, but one of the fires
We've been
that they
talking
had
about
there.
fires all summer.
Yeah, there was an article that appeared at the BBC, as I recall. It might have been CNN, but I think it was at the BBC. And the article was basically an opinion piece that was trying to answer a question. And the question is it better to try to outrun one of these fires on foot or in a car?
Probably on foot.
Because a lot of people who were trying to get out in their cars abandoned the cars
Yeah.
and tried to go on foot. Now there's well over 100 people missing right now.
Well, these fires can travel pretty quickly when the wind is blowing.
That
right?
was the point that the article came to. They said the people who tried to escape on foot might have been better off because there's no way a car was going to outrun some of these fires. One of them traveled for an hour at a rate of 80 miles an hour.
Wow.
Now, when you're on a road in a car and the road is going through the countryside, just driving at 80 miles an hour might be really difficult. But the road in this case is going to be filled with other vehicles.
Yep.
So outracing a fire traveling at that speed is just not in part of the equation.
And for the most part, these are nice homes too.
A lot of this, well, Miley Cyrus's home was destroyed.
Yeah,
There were a
yeah.
bunch of stars
Yeah.
whose homes were just completely destroyed. Another thing that I'd like to point out, the Peshtigo fire, which happened in the 1880s, same date
That
as
was the biggest fire to date, wasn't it?
right, same date as the Chicago fire. That particular fire jumped Green Bay. So you had a
Wow.
fire break that was 10 miles across,
Yeah.
just water for 10
Yeah,
miles.
and it jumped.
It jumped it. And there are scientists who believe that it jumped Lake Michigan.
Wow.
And the reason is because they had a fire just like it on the other side of Lake Michigan on the same day.
Yep.
But they know that in some cases they had a half-burned sign from a hardware store that they found. The store burned down, but the sign survived, and it was found something like 10 miles from the store. It had been picked up
By the wind.
by the wind, and it had been dropped in another
Wow.
location. And of course, when you can do that, you can jump.
You can bring fire with you.
You can jump Green Bay, which is
Yeah.
a minimum of 10 miles across. So, you know, anybody who thinks that you can, I don't know. I'm babbling. We should just
Well,
continue.
let's move
going.
along here. We got this is an interesting article.
The one from oilprice.com?
Bingo. Hit it. Plunging battery costs to trigger energy storage boom. And by the way, it's not just batteries that they're talking about.
Yeah.
They're talking about various forms of storage.
Right.
Some of which appear to be weird. Like there's one of them that's probably brilliant. They got a crane lifting up concrete blocks.
Yes.
And it costs virtually nothing to put it there. And it stores a lot of energy.
Stores a lot of energy,
concrete blocks
yes.
are cheap.
Yeah.
And you just rent the crane when you need it.
Well, actually, you don't rent the crane. You have a crane, and it's permanently
permanent.
positioned. And in fact, the pictures that I've seen of these things, there are 3 cranes, each with arms going in 2 directions. So they pick up 2 blocks simultaneously, which balances the whole thing.
Okay.
And then they drop the blocks down, and this is from a tower. Which
Who'd have thunk,
I have no idea.
We saw another one. I know we talked about it on the show here, where they were running trains uphill.
Yes.
Trains loaded with weight.
Yep.
Can't talk here.
Okay.
Well, in any case, it's not just batteries.
Yeah.
And there's going to be
It's storage in general.
There's going to be new ways to store.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Bloomberg New Energy Finance has forecast a veritable boom in energy storage installations in coming years, with investments hitting $1.2 trillion by 2040.
that ain't hay.
No, that ain't hay.
Now, this is what they're investing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Falling battery costs will drive the boom, and BNEF projects a 52% drop in utility-scale lithium-ion systems by 2030. That's 52% in 12 years. Actually, we're getting to 11 years now.
That's because the battery costs are falling.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Well, BNEF, the Bloomberg,
yeah.
forecast that by 2040, there will be global energy storage capacity of almost a terawatt. That's a trillion watts.
Yes. That a terawatt
It's
is
a kilo, mega, giga, tera.
yeah.
What?
A terawatt is 1,000 gigawatts, and what they're saying is that
Yes.
the output of the batteries by what date, Tom? You said
2040.
2040. The output of those batteries would be more than double the output of all the nuclear plants on Earth
Amazing.
that we have now. And what we're going to have in nuclear plants in 2040, I don't know. My guess is it's going to
There's not gonna be too
going to
many.
be dropping way down. Okay, our
Well,
next.
they're talking, the takeaway here, Elon Musk's concept of a household featuring a solar roof, a household battery pack, and an EV could become a reality not just for billionaires.
Yes, absolutely. It's already
And
happening.
he's betting his money on it.
Yep.
He's betting himself on it.
Our next item is from Energy Matters.
We got a picture here.
We do.
I think we do, if I can find it. Come on, you. Oh.
I could turn this computer and then everybody
No.
see.
I'm just scrolling when the wrong thing's on the screen. And
Yeah.
It's not scrolling.
Okay, this is
There
from
we
Energy
go.
Matters.
Smart battery system saves more than $2,000 a year on electricity bills. This is an interesting article.
It
and
is.
We've touched base on
Yeah,
this
we have.
concept before.
Power bills will fall by more than 2,000 Australian dollars per year. That's 1,440 US dollars for owners of a new smart battery systems. Systems like those from PowerPlay identify times household off-peak for household off-peak electricity use. They can choose to store power or to sell it to the grid.
Well, this whole idea is the whole thing is planned and figured out. It's a community.
Yep.
Okay, in a community, every house has storage, every house has solar.
Yep.
You know, but they're all tied together
And they're
and
aggregating.
run by a brain.
Yeah.
Okay, which is probably about the size of your computer.
Maybe smaller. Who knows?
It's a master planned housing community designed to optimize power use. Owners join a network to create their own virtual power plant, and that's all the batteries that they've got. This gives them flat electricity from $30 a month with no power bills. It seems to be working pretty well.
Yep.
By the way, these aren't cheap. In Australia, in Australian dollars, one of these houses, 1.2 million bucks.
Wow. Well, you know,
But it's the whole system.
it's going to change. You know, these are expensive houses, and they're put together in expensive neighborhoods. But
Oh yeah, this is first class stuff.
okay, we are up to Tuesday, November 13th, and we have an article from
Another
Inverse.
picture.
This is not a picture for this article. I pushed the button prematurely.
Yeah, so did I. Well, I'll leave you up there and
Okay.
get us in the background here. Elon Musk slams climate skeptics amid California fires. Quote, "It will get worse."
Elon Musk criticized climate change skeptics on Twitter as wildfires spreading across California led to an outcry from scientists. He said in his tweets, "Betting that science is wrong and oil companies are right is the dumbest experiment in history by far."
Say that again. This is Elon Musk speaking.
Yeah. Betting that science is wrong and oil companies are right is the dumbest experiment in history by far. And you know, there's a really interesting article in a series of articles in Clean Technica. They talk about Tesla all the time. Tesla is a powerhouse now.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Tesla is selling cars much faster than any other
Faster than he can make them.
yeah, any other luxury car,
Yeah.
and
Well, we've
they're
talked
entering
about
into
that.
cheaper car territory. So
Well, we're getting back to Musk here. Another quote from him.
okay,
What we can conclude with a great deal of confidence now is that climate change is making these events more extreme.
yes.
He's not lying there.
When a fire is moving for 80 miles an hour, and it does that for an hour, it's moved 80
pretty
miles.
far.
That is extreme. You know,
Another quote from Musk. I like this one. We know we'll run out of dead dinosaurs to mine for fuel and have to use sustainable energy eventually. So why not go renewable now?
yeah.
Duh.
Okay, our next item has
And we
that
got a picture
pollution
coming up.
picture.
Yeah.
This is from WRAL.com, which
Lovely picture.
I would guess is a television station, although I'm not 100%
I guess
sure.
that too. It looks
Yeah.
like a refinery there, doesn't it?
It does.
Clean energy is surging, but not fast enough to solve global warming. And we're
Yeah.
going to hit this again later.
We are. Over the next 2 decades, the world's energy system will undergo a huge transformation, but there is a catch. The global march toward clean energy still isn't happening fast enough to avoid dangerous global warming, the International Energy Agency warns. Now, my point of view on this is we're still ramping up. Yeah, if we continue
That's a
going...
little bit more optimistic.
Well,
Than this guy.
The next article is far more optimistic.
Well, that's good.
You want to go to that one?
Well, let's see if I got a quick takeaway here. China, which burns half the world's coal, is making heavy investments in wind, solar, nuclear, and natural gas.
We knew that
That's
all
the good
along.
news,
Yeah.
okay? The average coal plant in Asia, all of Asia right now, is 15 years old or less.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to be around for a long time unless there's a movement to close them down,
Well,
which economics could drive.
economics, I think, will drive it, and we will see that. Here, let's go to the next article. This is from Clean Technica.
Oh, this one here. This is written by one of those weird guys. Woohoo! Think about it, George. Woohoo! I wanted to say lizards. Lazard's levelized cost of electricity version 12.0 is here. Explain what that means.
I had a lot of fun writing this article. Zach Shahan, who is the editor of Clean Technica, sent me an email when this came out. He said, "I want you to cover this."
Okay.
And which he doesn't usually do. I usually write what I write for Clean Technica because I feel like writing it. And in this particular case, I looked at this and I said, "This is amazing."
Right up your alley.
Way ahead of the time fossil fuels were to be stranded assets due to climate change, the plants that are using them are rapidly becoming stranded assets themselves.
Never thought of that, but that's right on the money. That's true.
Because of renewable competition. Fossil fuels will have no market. Neither will nuclear fuel. Now, here's the thing. Lazard's levelized cost of electricity, or of energy rather, is probably the most quoted source of levelized cost. We talked about this before on this show today. The thing from Texas. They are the most quoted. They are financial advisors. They're not telling people buy or sell this or that in this particular case.
That's what they do.
They do, but that's not what they're doing in this case. They're saying this is how much this energy costs. And the levelized cost is designed to distinguish among things on an orange versus orange basis. You know, including the subsidies, they're all built in. There are certain things that are not included, one of which is like Price-Anderson insurance. Another thing that's not included is external costs, like people getting sick and dying because of air pollution. This is just the cost and the subsidies of the power. And what they said was, in their levelized cost, the levelized cost of solar and wind power has fallen below the marginal cost of coal and nuclear.
Nuclear and gas. Yep.
And it's falling below the cost of gas. Now, the marginal cost is how much it costs to get the energy if the plant has been completely paid off.
Okay.
All right? So the marginal cost...
Take that into consideration.
The marginal cost of coal is pretty low, and the marginal cost of nuclear is pretty low. In fact, it's very low. But the cost of solar and wind has fallen below that.
Below that.
And what that means is, if
that means a lot.
It means a lot. If you're a utility, and we've seen this happening. We had that thing in Indiana today. If you're a utility and you look at your coal-burning power plant and you look at the cost of the electricity and the price you're going to charge and the cost of running the plant, what you'll find is we're getting to a point where it's cheaper to shut down that plant, regardless of how new it is.
We've talked about exactly that.
Shut it down.
Relatively new plants are closing because it's cheaper.
Exactly. And what that means is we're going to see a rapid change in the market over the next 5 years. And another thing that I want to point out is that the decline of the levelized cost of energy, and there's a chart with this article that shows this. The decline is on an exponential curve. And that
almost perfectly exponential.
Yeah, beautiful exponential curve. And the exponential curve, for reasons that can be explained, continues on new technology. And we've seen this with computers what's the law with computers? It's called Wright's Law. It's the overarching thing. It was discovered in 1937, and it happens with a lot of technologies.
Computers is one of them.
Computers is one.
Solar panels seems
law.
to be another one.
Yeah, Moore's Law is the one with computers.
Okay.
Okay. We should get going. We've got 7.5 minutes
this
here.
Is a pretty optimistic view, though.
Well, this is my view.
Well, I think you're on the money.
Okay. Wednesday, November 14th, we have an item from Green Tech Media, and there is another distressing picture of pollution.
Another beautiful picture of pollution.
Yeah. A lot of that is steam and condensation coming from cooling towers.
It's not all, but there's pollution in that picture for sure. Okay, that's a coal plant in case you didn't guess.
Yeah.
Gloomy prospects in IEA's latest world energy.
Again,
That's the International Energy Agency.
I think the International Energy Agency hasn't got this right yet. I think for the reasons that we were just talking about. None of the scenarios in the latest International Energy Agency's World Energy Outlook show renewables growing fast enough to meet global climate goals. Under current policy, said the IEA, the world would see major increases in energy-related carbon emissions.
So what they're saying is we still have to ramp up what we're doing.
Much. We have to ramp it up a lot. No question about it. Okay.
Let's see. I got a lot of notes on this thing, but
okay.
I don't know if we really have to. Well, most emissions linked to energy infrastructure is already essentially locked in.
Yes.
So you can't do much about that.
Yeah.
Except close the plants.
Except close the plants. And we have to close the plants. But the previous thing that we talked about, what I'm saying is those plants are going to get closed.
Well, because you can't ignore the effect of low prices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there's a quick takeaway. It's an interesting article. It's
Yeah.
a very detailed article, and it's worth reading if you got the time. The share of renewables in the power mix would need to rise from a quarter today to 2/3 in 2040. Okay, and as of now, it's not happening. For heating, it would need to go up from 10% today to 25% by 2040.
And I think it's going to be way past 25% by 2040.
It could very well be, but it's going to take a concerted effort to hit that.
Yep.
And that's happening.
Yep.
I mean, we've talked about it in the show.
Okay, we've got an item here from Clean Technica.
Yes, we do. And here we go again on energy storage. This is a goodie.
This is going to be a big story for the year.
Energy storage is a $1.2 trillion investment opportunity globally. And
Yep.
it is soaring in the UK. Well, the article's about the UK.
Bloomberg New Energy Finance. We've referred to this same thing just a few minutes
That's
ago.
what they do.
Predicts the world energy storage market will attract $1.2 trillion in investment and grow to 942 gigawatts by 2040. There was a previous article on this show where we talked about this, but specifically in the UK. In the UK, the current pipeline already sits at an impressive 6,874 megawatts. Now that's 6,874 megawatts of storage.
Yes, it is.
And that's going to back up.
Storage makes a lot of sense with renewables.
Yep.
I mean, the sun doesn't shine at night.
But people don't realize how much sense it makes with
well, the wind doesn't always blow either.
yeah, but coal-burning power plants don't always run either. And
Well, you don't think about that.
when the Australian government was trying to put as much money as it possibly could into coal, and the various other parts of the country were trying to put it into renewables, Malcolm Turnbull, who was the previous prime minister, wanted to put a whole lot of money into pump storage at Snowy Hydro, because he saw this as something that would back up the grid for when the grid went down for the coal-burning power plants.
Yeah.
What happened? Snowy Hydro said, sure, let's do that. And all of a sudden, they're putting their money into almost a gigawatt of renewable energy. They're buying renewable energy instead of the coal, that Malcolm Turnbull wanted them to get.
I read that somewhere.
We're in a strange world.
Crazy
Okay.
place. Well, this is the
Our last item
about.
here, and we have a nice picture
Here.
of Scottish wind turbines, and this is
We've
from
seen that picture before, a different view of it, but that's Edinburgh Harbor.
Edinburgh Harbor.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's Inchkeith, that island.
Oh, okay,
there.
fine.
That's Inchkeith.
Okay, this is from Clean Technica.
It is that. Scottish Wind delivers the equivalent of 98% of the country's October electricity demand. Well, they explained that's
How is it the equivalent?
It's technically true,
Yeah.
but this isn't really what's happening.
Well, it is what's happening. It is technically true, but you have to understand it to understand it. New figures publicized by the World Wildlife Foundation Scotland on Monday revealed that wind energy generated the equivalent of 98% of the country's electricity demand in October, or enough electricity to power nearly 5 million homes in Scotland. Well, I got news for you. There ain't 5 million homes in Scotland. There ain't even 3 million. But, you know, this is all getting to the question of what do you mean? What they're saying is that if you look at the country's demand, the wind turbines produced 98% of that amount. Mm-hmm. Where did that power go? Well, a lot of it went to England.
Well, it's interesting because October in Scotland is a windy month.
Yeah.
And it has been for the last number of years.
Yeah.
And they talk about that in this article.
Yes.
About how much of the household's demand for electricity was powered by wind in October each year for the last 5 years.
Right.
And it's significant.
It is significant. And it has also gone up and down in fairly big swings. Nevertheless, what we're at here is 98% of the electricity that was used, 98% of that amount was used. It came from wind turbines, and of course we've got this guy who's going to be on the Federal Energy regulatory commission who says you can't do more than 6% or 7% because if you do, everything is
Everything's gonna break.
Everything's going to break.
Yeah.
Well, it ain't happening. It's happening, and it's not happening the way he said it would. So
Well, I think we're running out of
at
time
the
here.
end of
so-
we're at the end of our show, and I'm going to have a perfectly lovely week in the background there, so that we can say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Come
Been
back
fun.
next time. Have a good week.